I'll just wait for a few people to join. All right. Is there sound now? I don't even know. Yeah, it's good? Okay. All right, guys, there's sound. We're back. Thanks, guys, for coming back. I see you're all coming back in. That is amazing. I don't know what happened with my sound, but I'm hoping you can all hear me now. Yes, okay. Thank you. Oh my gosh, this is so annoying when you start a stream and you don't even know your sound isn't working. So it was painful, but my hubby, the tech support guy, came in and helped. So that was amazing. So thanks for joining back again. I hope you guys are good. What I was saying when I was muted, if anybody could read my lips, I was saying last time there was too much truth on YouTube. So I got put in a little bit of YouTube jail for now. So I couldn't stream for a little bit, but I'm back. They can't keep me down. And I also wanted to show you where you guys can find me, because I think pretty much anything I say at this point on YouTube is going to be some kind of reason to get a strike. So I think I have 3 strikes left, and after that, they're going to kill my channel. So hopefully you guys are going to be able to find me again. So anyways, so just a quick hello to everyone in the chat. So Joad, you're there. Thank you so much for your note, Joad, while I was away. That was awesome. Peter, Suzanne, there were so many people that were there before. Oh, Stavros, hello. And Zana Rosa, very cool name. So anyways, yeah, last time I was literally 17 minutes into a stream and YouTube just cut my video down. I've never seen that on a live stream for me. I've heard it happen to other people, but yeah, so too much truth. So hone in the truth next time. But let me just show you where you guys can find me, because this is going to keep happening. So here's Rumble. Here's my account on Rumble. I'm Julie Mora as one name. So if you wanted to go and join over there. So yesterday I was trying to do a live stream and I found out that I couldn't because I was oh my gosh, I was having too many red bars. Seems like it's doing it again. So I'm seeing red bars again right now. I have so much, I've lost faith that this will keep going, but let's just keep going anyways. Rumble, Julie Mora as one name. And you'll see that yesterday I added the spicy version of the video that I'm going to be doing today, which is called Nurses and Doctors of 1930s Germany, Nazi Tyranny Repeating Itself. So this is where you're going to be able to go and see, and this one is only a 3-minute video, so it won't take you a lot of time to watch it. But the main premise of that video is similar. And again, I have to be so careful how I word things here. I don't want them to cut this again. But we are essentially seeing the same thing, mainly being that as soon as Hitler took power in 1933, one of the first things he did is he said, basically, nurses and doctors are no longer going to be taking care of patients, but they now need to take care of the state. So please go watch that video, because I get into details that I can't get into on YouTube, but it's basically saying how the same thing is just happening to repeat itself right now. So, okay. Yeah, Linda, you joined last time and I got cut off as soon as you joined. And Suzanne was there too. Yeah, Suzanne saw when I disappeared. So I guess it's my training for the future concentration camps I'm going to be sent to. This is a training ground. Like, you just disappear midstream. Futurely, I'm going to disappear midlife. You know, I'll be there one day eating dinner, and then all of a sudden they're going to scoop me out of my house, put me in a van. So anyways, today I wanted to talk about specifically nurses and how it is that really the question becomes, how do ordinary nurses and doctors whose prime concern is to worry about the well-being of a patient, how do they go from that to being agents of the state who are willing to carry out anything at all in the name of the state? So I'm going to have to get you guys to, what's the phrase? I coined the phrase here. Hold on. You guys are going to be proud of me. I have to just find it here. The phrase I coined is, if this were applied in modern society. So I'm going to take you back to Germany, and you're going to have to use your own judgment and think about, what if this was applied in modern society, and then apply it, because I can't do it for you because YouTube will ban me. So this is what I'm doing. I'm just going to take you back, give you a few examples of how it was done, and then you can use your own abilities, cognitive abilities, to transpose that onto modern society. So see, I can't be providing medical misinformation right now, because I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about history. I'm talking about 1930s, and specifically Germany. And for all of you guys who are like, oh, she's always talking about the Nazis, don't worry. I have a couple videos that I'm working on that are coming up on Cuba, and how Cuba is one of the champions of the world in manipulating statistics. And again, you're going to have to use your judgment to apply that to modern society, because again, if I say too much and I connect the dots too obviously, then YouTube gonna come back after me. But YouTube's not going to keep me down. We're going to get over this. And if you guys could go and go on to Rumble here on my channel, Julie Mora, I'll show you guys my BitChute channel too. I'm also on BitChute. A couple of people have asked me if I'm on BitChute as well, and I am. So I'm going to show you my BitChute channel. It's again called Julie Mora. I make it super easy to find me. So I'm Julie space Mora on BitChute, and on Rumble it's just in one word. But again, I posted the same video on BitChute that I post on Rumble, and they are leaving me alone, and nobody's bothering me over on those social medias. So I would highly encourage you, if you can, to go and subscribe over there. And I know it is such a pain to have to be subscribed to a bunch of channels on different platforms, because you never know what's going to happen, who's going to take down what. But right now, because we're kind of left to ourselves and we have to band together, we kind of have to go through these growing pains. So, oh, hi, Faye. Faye is following me on BitChute. I knew you were. Thank you, Faye. So Linda says she's going to meet me at a camp. Yeah, I'm going to meet a lot of you guys in camps soon. There are some. I can't. Oh my God, I have to remember I can't. This will be my Rumble live stream. That's what we're going to talk about on Rumble. We're going to do the truth. The truth bombs will come out on Rumble, trust me. So anyways, once I have a few more followers, I think I will start streaming Rumble instead of YouTube. But anyways, I'll let you guys know when that happens. Okay, so let's get back to the nurses. And how did the 1930s nurses of Germany come to be okay with basically killing people? So they went from caretakers to killers. And how did that happen? And in such a small amount of time. And this is where, if you understand the propaganda power, that is the first thing. So the propaganda is so widespread in Germany, similar to, now, but it was so widespread that it permeated every aspect of everybody's life. And of course, the nurses, whether you're already a nurse, working in a hospital, or you're going to be a nurse, you walk into nursing school with this propaganda already in your brain. And the type of propaganda was around the Aryan race, the master race. So they had to build the master race. So there was kind of two components. One is we have to build the master race. So there's a whole program on getting the best children from Eastern, Western Europe. So Hitler would literally go and send people to steal children that looked Aryan, so blue eyes, blonde hair, bring them back to Germany, and then put them in German families. So that's one of the things that he did. The other part was getting rid of the undesirables. So the Nazis used to call those guys the useless feeders. You've probably heard this term before. That was how they actually used the propaganda around it. So once you've created a class of useless feeders, these are people who cannot contribute to society. And remember, the Nazis were a very communist society, and it's important for every worker to contribute. That's the goal of a communist environment. You have to contribute. So when you have handicapped people, you have mentally challenged people, they can't contribute. They're called useless feeders. And there's a whole bunch of propaganda items that are going to go after them. So one of the main things Germany did is they showed posters and pamphlets of how much it would cost to keep a useless feeder alive in Germany. And they would send that out to everybody saying, hey, see how much it would cost us? It's just easier to just kill them, just get rid of them. We don't need them. They're costing you, the taxpayers, so much money. So that was one of the tricks. The propaganda was so intense that it got into schools, and the schools would actually do mathematical problems. So they would teeth match saying, okay, if you have 2 useless feeders in this city, how much money would each taxpayer have to pay to sustain them? That was and that was designed to be a propaganda item. I'm sure you absolutely have seen this kind of nonsense in our society already. But again, right now I'm going to go back to my sentence here. You're going to have to apply this with your own intellect to the modern society. I'm sure you can. Hey, Edgy D, David Cox, and Tommy Gunn. I'm glad you guys are here. Okay, let's keep going. Sorry for all the paper noise. Okay. So, as soon as Hitler took power, this propaganda was insane. The useless feeders came about. This was even before the Jews. The Jews were obviously part of the propaganda, but they actually decided right away who's going to live, who's going to die. That was essentially what happened. And then they put in motion the programs to support that, the infrastructure to support that. So this is the turning point in medical history, a very embarrassing part of medical history, by the way. The nurses, the doctors do not want you to know that. And by the way, they were so embarrassed about their past that it took them, I think it was 1997, until the Germans could hold a medical conference in Germany, because they were so afraid that their Nazi past would be brought up at one of these conferences that they just avoided it altogether. So, and we have to remember as well that Germany was one of the most coveted places on earth for the medical establishment. So people from the US, people from Canada, if you were a really famous doctor, you would want to go to study in Germany because they had the most advanced studies of all medicine in the world. So think about that. The most advanced society in the world from a medical perspective managed to do the most horrific things in the world. So anyways, just absolute insanity. Okay. So the nurses, they had a couple of associations. There were 5 main ones, and 2 of them straight up came out with an allegiance to Hitler. And another one said, we will not get in your way, essentially. So that is what led to the Jewish doctors and Jewish nurses. Initially, they were told you can only see Jewish patients, but very quickly it became they were banned out of it. So the Nuremberg laws took care of that. So that is a turning point where the doctors were no longer looking after the welfare of their patients, but now they were behaving in a way to enhance the state. What was better for the state is what the doctors would do. Now, doesn't that sound familiar to something maybe today, that what is better for the state is what the doctors will do? And of course, not all nurses and doctors wanted to go along this way. Many of them just didn't, but they had no recourse. It was so intense, the pressure was so intense that either you went along with it or you were completely discarded from the profession. Now, that also sounds familiar, doesn't it? That if you're a nurse who doesn't want to go along with Nazi ideology, you are kicked out of the nursing profession. And similarly, if you're a doctor and you do not want to go along with this, you're also kicked out of the profession. Doesn't that sound like awfully similar to something going on right now? Anyways, okay. So the part of the propaganda was also rebranding words, and this is another commonality with something happening today, maybe allegedly, the rebranding of the words. So they had a big eugenics program, and part of eugenics was euthanasia. And initially, euthanasia was really known as the killing of people. Sometimes, killing them in a humane way, but still killing them. That was the general idea. But under Nazism, they actually rebranded that thing as, they called it applying a merciful death as a right for incurable sufferers. That was the rebranding of killing people. So it went from, oh, we're just killing people, to, oh, we're providing them a merciful death. But the problem with that, it only works if you have consent. So if you really want to die and you're provided with a merciful death, that can be argued that from an ethical standpoint, it could be wrong. From a religious, if you're Christian, it could be wrong. Ultimately, it could be the patient's decision. However, the problem with the Nazis is they never got consent from anybody to do anything. So this is the issue with them. And when you don't do consent, it's actually murder. So euthanasia without consent is mass government endorsed killing of a specific class of people. So who did these guys go after first? These nurses, these doctors, Nazified to the max. Well, their first victims were children. So it's so horrific to think about. And this is why the nurses of Germany hid this history, and they don't want to acknowledge it too loudly, because this is part of their history, and it's a very dark stain on all of medical history, by the way. But they went after the children first. So the nurses were deployed to go to German households and find out, whose children were disabled, whose children were mentally disabled, physically disabled, didn't matter. And they would convince the families to give up the children. And they would say, we're going to bring your child to a facility and we're going to take care of them. Like the pressure on you is too intense. We understand that. We want to do what's best for your child. So we will take your child. We'll take care of him. And that was a bold-faced lie, because they knew they were going to bring the child back to an institution and kill that child. So they did it via showers where they would put toxic gas in them. Sometimes they wouldn't feed the child, depending how old they were. They wouldn't feed the child for a while. They would put them outside so they would get hypothermia and then die from cold. So all of these killing methods were done by nurses. And then they would send a note to the family saying, oh my gosh, we're so sorry, your child passed away. Eventually, the Germans started to catch on to what was going on, and they noticed these killings were happening. So they were more inclined to hide their children. But the initial families who went for this, they were completely duped by the government. And again, this is another situation that sounds awfully familiar to something we are going through right now. So next were the babies, of course. So, sorry, my throat's really dry already. Not even wet. It's 18 minutes in. Yeah, Tommy Guns is better read than dead. 100% agree. J for freedom, and hello, the Saxon. So the midwife profession was very quickly taken over by Nazis and their ideology as well. And the midwives were mandated to report any birth where there was a malformation of the child, or there was a suspected malformation. So at this point, you didn't even need to know for sure. You could just suspect it. The midwife was mandated to report that back to the state, and the state would come and take your baby away. So the midwives, again, not looking for the best interest of their patients or their babies, the babies they would deliver, they were all of a sudden now a spy for the state. So this is an incredible betrayal to the German people. And the nurses would take the babies, they would come and take the babies later on, and then they would the nurses were the ones holding the babies while they would either suffocate them in their arms or would potentially starve them to death. So the kids came first. That's what they did to the kids. Nazi Germany, the most advanced medical society in the world, was killing children and babies first. So they would also use drugs. Sometimes they would overdose the kids. That was another one. And the nurses were so brainwashed at this point by the ideology that they actually thought that they were doing the right thing. They thought this was part of caring. This was part of society. This was the new way of doing things. Oh, is my sound bad again, Binks? Are you referring to before? You're referring, I have like a popcorn stuck in my throat or something. I don't know what it is, but I keep coughing. You guys are all gonna think I have the coof. I don't. Oh goodness. Yeah, Binks, I had trouble with my sound before. I have no idea what happened, but I'm glad you're back. But yes, the zucchini ghost 100% messing with my life every day. Okay. So it's funny because today now, I have to be careful, but it seems the state also wants the children, whether it's via education, via medicine, via economy. Seems to me like they are going after the children again. So we're kind of seeing this again. Okay. So the eugenics got into a full-blown well-oiled machine at this point in Germany. And their euthanasia program moved on to the adults. So one of the most, and I'm sure you guys have heard about this, but the T4 program was named after like the house on the street was like number 4, and they called it T4 because that's where it started, where they would kill the adult mentally disabled, physically disabled patients. And what they would do is they would take them from their homes and bring them into vans, and then at the institute they would eventually kill them and do the same thing they did for the kids, send a letter home saying, oh my gosh, your disabled sister died from appendicitis or something like that, right? That's what they would write. So the Reich, the Third Reich, Hitler's Germany, that's how they absorbed the medical profession very quickly. Upon seizing power, they absorbed every aspect of the medical profession. And from those initial days of euthanasia, you can see how it evolved into the full wholesale killing in concentration camps. So it started small. It started with just one child here and there, just one baby here and there, moved on to the adults, take these adults here and there, to the wholesale slaughter and experimentation upon of the inmates from the concentration camps. So the argument, so there was a book, I have to mention this book very quickly. It was written before the Nazis were in power. It was written about 10 years before. So it was called The Approval of the Extermination of Worthless Human Lives. Can you believe it? Can you believe a book like that was published? And this was in Germany. And it was published by, and I'm going to repeat the title because this is worth listening to a second time. The book was literally named Approval of the Extermination of Worthless Human Lives. And the argument in there is, the main argument the authors had was that you can kill people who don't have a life that is worth living. So they wrote a whole, like, it's almost like they got drunk one night, and those people that get drunk and get really angry? It's like these guys were that bunch of guys, and they got way too drunk and super savage angry, and they wrote this book. And then it was somehow published, and guys, I'm going to give you guys a second in the chat to figure out who loved that book. Can you guys tell me who would love a book called Approval of the Extermination of Worthless Human Lives? Go. Put it in the chat, guys. I'll wait. I'll give you a few seconds. While I cough as I'm dying. Bill Gates. Saxon thinks it's Bill Gates. Bill Gates was not born yet. Was he? When the heck was he born? I'm going to look it up. Maybe he was born. But he definitely would not have would have written that book. How old is Bill Gates? I don't even know. Age, let's see. He's 65. He was born in 55. So he's born 35 years after this book was written. So those are all very good guesses for Bill Gates. Yes, Satan is pretty close to it. Okay, no, Hitler. Hitler was a huge fan of this book. And you want to know a twist of irony? The book was actually, Derek is 100% trolling me with this answer right here. So it was written by a psychiatrist, believe it or not, so somebody from the medical profession, and a jurist, a law guy, a lawyer. So a lawyer and a psychiatrist wrote this book. And the biggest twist of irony, and I'm not taking joy in this, but I'm just saying karma's a bitch. The psychiatrist was married to a Jewish lady, and because of that, he lost his position as a psychiatrist in the Third Reich later on. So he wrote this garbage, and it came back to kick him in the butt. So I'm telling you this, the karma is serious business. So anyways, okay. So now the nurses, the doctors are all working for the state. They're all doing this wholesale killing for them. And futurely, they're going to be going to concentration camps and carry out experimentation on human beings. So there was, remember when I did the stream on the Nuremberg trials? Well, before even Nuremberg hit, there was there was a nurses trial. It was very local and small, but it's called the Hadamar trial. And that it was named after one of the 6 centers in Germany where they were actually actively killing the mentally ill. And in that, the nurses went on trial. So they always will come after you. And if you watch my video on BitChute, if you go on BitChute and watch the one that I made that's too spicy for YouTube, and it's called The Nurses and Doctors of Germany, I have a warning at the end of that video for nurses and doctors who are going along with this. So I can't put that out here on this on here, but I put the spicier messages out. So anyways, go check it out. The nurses that were at their trial, at the Hadamar trial for nurses, all denied accountability. And think about it. Don't you think this is what they're going to do if something like that were to repeat itself? Don't you think they're going to say, we didn't know, we didn't know what we were doing, we didn't understand that the Jabba Jabba hut was going to injure, right? We didn't understand. I have to be so careful. So another thing that is very, very alarming is, of course, it started with the most mentally ill, the most deformed people, the killing spree. But eventually they killed all of those people. And then they're starting to look for slight malformations or slight deviations from the perfect German. And they would go after those. So you could just be a guy that's really smart, like 130 IQ, and you're missing your middle toe. And the Nazis will be like, that's not genetically perfect. And they would come for you. So it never ends. And in the end, one of the things that came out at the nurses' trial is that they were caught killing healthy children simply because they were part Jewish. So they were physically healthy, but the Germans, the Nazis, viewed them as non-healthy because they were Jewish. And Jewish people were kind of like rats, right? They were like considered to be subhuman. So it was okay to kill them if they were subhuman. All part of the propaganda. So one of the things that's very important to understand is that these nurses in these psychiatric institutions in Germany were also required to take an oath of secrecy. Now, in today's modern world, that would be called a non-disclosure agreement. Back in those days, it was an oath of secrecy, where they couldn't repeat what they were saying. So very likely that currently there are very serious NDAs in place with the nurses and the doctors. Not only that, but for anybody manufacturing anything regarding the COOF, probably has some very serious non-disclosure agreements in place as well. They're probably being bought off, they're probably being paid, and they have non-disclosure agreements, similar to the Nazi Germany nurses. So you have to wonder, when a nurse is held to secrecy, it's something really bad's going on. Normally an NDA is like, if I work at a company and I know all of their secrets to build something and I go to a competitor, they would want me to sign an NDA because they don't want me to bring the secrets straight up to the competitor. So it's more of a competitive economics, NDA. But when you start having NDAs around nurses, it's not good. And I'm sure you guys have heard about that. Some NDAs happening today. So, hey, Mark Pope, good to see you too. Jay Freedom, I don't know if I said hi to you, but I sure hope I did. But welcome. Thanks for being here, Jay Freedom. Okay. Okay, there is a couple of more things I wanted to do. I wanted to address the nurses who were working in these institutes, some of their duties, and I found this really creepy when I was researching this, but this came out at the trials, but their testimonies confirm that they were there every step of the way. So every step of the way of the Nazi machine killing, the Nazi killing of the people, they were there every step of the way. They were doing things like falsifying death reports. So they would kill somebody and then they would report that it was appendicitis, for example. They brought the patients to the death rooms. And you've got to think, I'm trying to imagine if I was a nurse and you've brought 6 children to this death room, you bring them, they never come out alive. Like, don't you start to wonder what's going on? So you have to be so actively brainwashed in such an irreversible state that your brain has become okay with that. I can't understand how this could even happen. I mean, I say I don't understand, but I know the propaganda is very powerful. So that's how they did it, and they would justify it in their minds as, oh, well, I have no other option. And similar to some of the medical professionals today who seem to be justifying it in their minds as, oh, well, I have no other choice. And don't get me wrong, I'm not angry at the medical profession today, because I think there's a lot of heroes in it right now who are trying to change things. But for those who are not and who are going along with this, it's a little bit more worrying. So they're going to be the ones denying accountability at the end of all this. Okay. One of the most creepy duties that I found from the nurses was their job was to bring gifts to the children, because they would try to make sure none of the patients understood they were about to be killed. So the nurses, their job was to do everything they can to dupe the patient and make sure they didn't understand what was going on. So very creepy. Okay, so until 1942, they would call it euthanasia, and that's when they would bring people to all these different centers. The T4 program was well enforced. After that, they disbanded the T4 program, and they actually started a new thing called wild euthanasia, which just means that they would go and find people wherever they were and just get rid of them at that point. So didn't need to be brought to an institution anymore. And if you think about concentration camps in general, how that escalated, how it was just, hey, no, just come on the train, dude. We're just taking you. You're going to go to a work camp somewhere. Don't worry about it. Just pack a luggage and one bag and you're good. And then the guy would arrive at Auschwitz. They would take his bag and they would send him to the labor camp or the death place, depending on how they were assessed by the Nazis there. But you can see that the level of deception brought on by the state in order to carry out its agenda is every single level of your life. So I'm just saying, if there was a government truck that showed up at my door and said, come with me, we're just taking you to doesn't matter what you're doing, I'm not going. So history has shown us that nothing good ever comes from you going willingly with government officials. Sorry to say this, but this is the history of the world. There is, when you have armed officials that show up at your house and try to get you to go along. My personal plan is to fight. Okay, I'm going to talk about 2 people. One I know the name, the other one I don't know the name. So when you think about the medical horrors of Nazi Germany, everybody tends to go, hey, Mengele, right? So that was the doctor, and I think he was in Auschwitz. Was he in Auschwitz? Dr. Mengele. Let me check. He ended up drowning in a pool at a resort in like Brazil or something. He wasn't even persecuted. Okay, Joseph Mengele, and let me just see where he worked. I'm pretty sure he was SS commander. I'm pretty sure he was at where was he? Auschwitz. Yeah, he was Auschwitz. So when you think about the Nazis and their death experimentations and awful, terrible things they did to human subjects that were alive and they ultimately killed, Mengele is the first person you think about. But there's another guy who was also at the doctor's trial for the Nuremberg trials, and his name was Dr. Gerhard Rose. And the reason I want to talk about him is because he was one of the doctors who initially stood his grounds of ethics. So he was the guy that was responsible for tropical medicine. So he was one of the most advanced scientists in understanding tropical disease. And he was just working along in his wherever he was. I don't even know where the heck he was working. But the Wehrmacht, so the army, the Nazi army, came over and said to him, hey, we need you to develop a vaccine or some kind of a medicine against typhus and typhoid. Do it, because what was happening is as soon as the Germans hit the Eastern Front, every time a soldier would die, there would be 4 other guys that would die from typhoid or typhus. So they went to this guy, Gerhard Rose, and they were like, dude, you need to do this. And Gerhard Rose, and they're like, we're going to give you unlimited resources. You can go to the concentration camps, pick all the subjects you need, and do what you need to do. And Dr. Rose said, you know what? No, this is against my ethics to do this. I refuse. So they left him alone for 6 months. And this is I'm giving you his example because it's so relatable and it so shows you how people are willing to change at the end. So 6 months later, they were losing more people to typhus and typhoid at the Eastern Front. So the Wehrmacht guys came back and are like, you know what? The Red Army is right knocking at our door here, and they won't make the difference between you, a supposed good guy, and a Nazi. So you just may as well join us and do whatever you need to do because you're going to die anyways. So they convinced him that way to kind of turn to the evil side. So you know how, oh my God, I'm trying to remember now the guy who wrote the Gulag Archipelago. I can't remember his name right now because my brain is just flustered, but that guy. I remember in the Gulag Archipelago, he mentions that everybody has a heart, in their heart, has the penchant to go towards good or evil. And to me, the Dr. Rose story is a complete representation of that. So even if you're good to start with, you have this ability within you to go towards evil, because he actually ended up saying yes. And you know, the Nazis said, you owe it to your nation to do this. It is your duty as a German citizen to do this for your nation. So he got guilted in hardcore into doing this. And then he went along the Nazi way and started using inmates in concentration camps to do the research on typhus and typhoid. So that's the kind of guy you want to think about, because that's the more relatable guy. Mengele is so evil. He's on a separate level. He's like devil incarnate. And he's like next to Hitler on the bad scale. So we can't think of him because he's so extreme that it's not relatable. Whereas Dr. Rose was in a situation that any doctor could face. You're told one day to do something against your ethics, and eventually you get coerced into doing the opposite of your belief system simply because you feel you have no other choice. And again, this is the situation we are in today. Everything is exactly unfolding the exact same way. It's so uncanny and alarming, but yet I walk in the streets and people seem to be not realizing I don't understand this world anymore. Okay, I'm going to talk really quickly about this nurse. I can't remember her name, but because I didn't want to end this on like a negative note, but there was this nurse who she's a true hero. So she actually found out that they were killing people in Auschwitz. She couldn't believe it at first, but eventually she found out. And I wish I remember her name. I'm sure somebody knows it. Maybe I can do some digging and find her. But she asked to be positioned in Auschwitz as a nurse. And when she got there, she actually helped the prisoners, the Jews, the Poles, anybody who was there, the political dissidents. She actually helped them. So she got their trust. She won their trust, and she would smuggle like some letters out for them to their families, smuggle stuff back in. She eventually got to smuggle a bunch of ammunition for them as well. So that is an example of a really good nurse, somebody who to the end will stand with the morals that they believe in. And we have so many nurses like that. Again, if you want to know where these nurses are, specifically in Ontario, that's where I'm following them mostly. But if you go on Telegram, again, I'm just directing you to a site. But if you look on Telegram, there is one group called Healthcare Workers Oppose vax vax mandates. Just look those guys up, because you'll see all these hero nurses, just like this Auschwitz nurse, who are out there trying to fight. These are the ones who are not backing down, who are refusing to go along, and these are the new heroes of our society. And I'm 100% supporting them, because they fully understand what is happening, and despite all of this crazy, they are not going back on their morals. So they're not the Gerhard Roses of our society. They're the Auschwitz nerds, Auschwitz nerds of our societies. So that's pretty much it. I didn't have too much else planned for tonight, guys. I just wanted to come on and do a quick video about this. Please go and find me over here, BitChute and Rumble. And I'm not trying to shamelessly promote my other channels. It's just that realistically, my time on here is somewhat limited, and I'm just really hoping you guys can join me there. I've noticed that now Rumble, if I look here, they offer a live chat. You can see it right here. I might try to go on there once in a while. Like, I'll just test it out. I don't even know when. I'll give you guys a heads up when I test it out, and hopefully I can scoop up a few of you guys to come on Rumble on the live stream over there as well. I'll keep posting the spicy content on those, and do the more tame videos on here, just to keep showing you guys that, you know, we're winning this. The truth will always come out in our favor. They're panicking. This, like, think about it. I am such a small channel that the fact that they came after me and had to cut my stream is insane. Absolutely insane. They're afraid of what I have to say. One person in my house with no connections, politically, scientifically, like nothing. I have no connections, right? I'm like such a small like dot in the universe, barely visible if you had 10,000 microscopes. And yet YouTube finds the need to shut me down. They're really scared. When they're coming after me, it means they're running scared. And to me, that is good news. And we have to keep going with this. The truth always comes out. We are going to win in the end. This evil cannot continue unabated. Some of us will pay the price, and it's sad to say, but it's true. But we're going to win this in the end. So anyways, that's it for me. Thank you so much for joining tonight, guys. I will see you next Wednesday, back in my original time slot. And yeah, we'll keep going. Maybe I'll present the Cuba video next week, where we can look at the falsified statistics of Cuba under communism, try to make themselves look good. So maybe that's what we'll do next week. I haven't decided yet, but please tune in, and love to you all. Stay safe this week, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.